Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Roman Polcha Show. I am so grateful to have you here today, and I am so excited to be back. I haven't made a video since Tuesday, which for me is a bit of a layoff. I was previously putting out content every other day, and that has since obviously trickled off a little bit. So I made two videos Tuesday. Today is Sunday in central Pennsylvania, and I'm making my next video. So with that being said, I wanted to let you guys know that that is probably going to be how it is. Now with my wrestling season beginning, weekends are going to be the best time for me to sit down in front of the camera and give you guys the news. So you can probably expect to see 1 to 2 videos a week on Saturdays and Sundays, or just Sundays. Just depends on how my schedule is and when I have time. I'll do my best to give you guys content whenever I can. So, with that being said, what is the purpose of the video today? I am very excited, and this is a very optimistic, futuristic video today, and I'm going to be discussing possible Democratic nominees in the 2028 primary. That will be the first primary in which I will be able to officially vote, which is a very exciting thing for me to be able to exercise my civic right as an American to vote in an election. So, whenever my birthday comes up here in February, I will register to vote, as I encourage any young people watching this channel to do as well. Register and vote in all and as many elections as you can. It's a right that we have as Americans that we should cherish and that we should be appreciative of. They don't have that everywhere. So I'm grateful to be able to do that, and I'm anticipating and anxious and excited to do that at that time when that comes. So, with that being said, let's start talking about some of the possible candidates in 2028 for the Democratic nomination. And I'll kind of talk about the people that I think are frontrunners, what they are now. These things could obviously change. Just give you a small background on each of these candidates. I'm not going to go into grave detail about their every policy position or their every legislative decision, but I'm just going to give you a little background on the person, who they are, where they're from, and maybe what I think about them from the outside, looking at their vague record of what they've accomplished and their leadership skills, and how I think they would possibly fare in a 2028 election. I'll go through those candidates, and then I'll go through some more hot take type candidates at the end, some celebrity possible type candidates that have been floated in like more of a social media podcast type sphere. So let's get right into it, and let's start with someone who's been a front runner, and I'm going to go down the list. Or sorry, actually, let me start with the two other candidates before I get into some of the front runners. I'm going to get to two candidates that are not front runners at all, and those two candidates would be Kamala Harris, one, and Tim Walz, two. So both of those candidates are people that could run again in 2028. Tim Walz has never ran for president, obviously, and Kamala Harris has ran two unsuccessful presidential campaigns, one in 2020, where she did not even get close, and in 2024, obviously, she had just been defeated by Donald Trump. Both of these candidates seem extremely unlikely to me, which is why I wanted to float them first. I love Tim Walz's policies, and I love the things that he's done in Minnesota, but the fact that he was on the ballot as the vice president to Kamala Harris and they were just defeated makes them seem extremely unlikely to me that they would run again, because they've already kind of taken a loss on the national stage, and we've kind of seen how the public thinks of them. So for them to win the primary candidacy would be extremely, extremely difficult. Although I would expect one, if not both of them, to run, I would be a bit surprised if neither of them ran or even gave any effort to win the nomination. Kamala Harris, obviously, in her concession speech, made a point to say, just because we've lost this battle doesn't mean we've lost the war, essentially. But I do think that they are way down the list of people that could possibly be your candidate. It seems highly unlikely at this point that that will happen. So now let's get into some of the front runners. And the number one front runner right now, obviously, we're 4 years away, and 2.5 years away from the beginning of the primary campaigning. But one of the front runners right now would be the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. A quick rundown on him. He's the governor of California, as I just said. He has put together some progressive policies. He's done in California a weird balance of some very progressive things with some not very progressive things. I'm guessing to try to appeal to both the progressive wing of the party, but also the corporate wing of the party. He's very politician-y. He's very greasy in a way. Gives you car salesman vibes. He's an excellent debater. He absolutely owned Ron DeSantis, in my opinion, in the debate that they did against each other. He's a good debater, but he's very politician-y. He's from California, which has a reputation for being extremely far left. So how does that play out on the national stage would be interesting. He is a frontrunner right now. He has done a lot to already try to defend his state against Trump. And it seems as well, not just that, but that he's been gearing up for this presidential race for a while. So it seems to me that he is a frontrunner now. Whether or not that will continue would be interesting. I believe he's around 58, 57. So he would be a bit younger, a bit of a refresher for the party. Good debater, somewhat progressive, somewhat not progressive, depending on the day, how he's feeling. So it'd be interesting to see how he would fare out in an open primary against some of these other people. So another person who is another front runner, I would say the two front runners right now, 4 years away, obviously a lot will change, but is Gavin Newsom, like I just said, and Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. So with him, the deal is that we lost Pennsylvania in the 2024 election, and he is the governor of that state, a state that is probably the key to winning a general election. And there's been lots of speculation as to whether or not, I don't believe this is true, but there has been a lot of speculation as to whether or not adding him to the ballot over Tim Walz would have carried them over the edge in that state, which is an interesting proclamation I don't agree with, but it's interesting. He's an excellent speaker. He has kind of stolen the Barack Obama style of speaking. If you listen to him speak, it sounds like Barack Obama is speaking. So he's a good communicator of ideas. He's also a very put together, well polished politician, which I'm not quite sure is the direction that the party needs to be headed in right now. But I would be interested to see how him and Gavin Newsom would fare against each other in a debate type setting. Who would be better? I think that he's a bit corporate. It would be interesting to see how he would fare. He's definitely a favorite right now. Not as progressive as I would like to see our next candidate be, but an interesting guy who's a possible candidate in 2028. So other than him, we also have Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg is the current Secretary of Transportation for Joe Biden. He is basically the young version of Joe Biden in the Democratic Party right now, in my opinion. He's good on a few issues. I would say he'll be pretty good on energy and climate activism if he were to run. And he is an absolute fire communicator of ideas. He goes on to Fox News. He goes on to podcasts. He goes on to Jubilee videos. He does all of that kind of stuff. And his ability to communicate ideas with people is kind of why he's up as a favorite to run in 2028 and a favorite to possibly win. Is because he's just so good at communicating ideas and getting his point across. He's also the youngest of any of these people. I believe he's under 40. He's very young. He communicates ideas well. The question with him would only be, would our country be able to find it in them to vote for a gay man for president? That would be interesting. Obviously, Kamala Harris, as a female and as a biracial female, was that part of the reason that she lost? It's hard to know, but if if our country could find in a general election to vote for a gay man, that would be the question with Pete Buttigieg, because he is very young and he has decent policies. He's not the most progressive. Again, I said he's pretty much like Joe Biden but younger. So it would be kind of like that, which he would have been unsuccessful in 2024, but in 2028 after Trump, could that be the direction that the country wants to head? Possibly. So a couple other people that could run, you have J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois. I think that he could run. He's talked a lot about really taking a step up for the Democratic Party on the national stage. Do I think that he is the candidate that we need? No. He's a billionaire, and he's an old money billionaire who inherited a lot of his money. So I don't think that that is the direction that the party needs to be headed whenever we have been so separated and divided from the working class. So I think that that is not really a direction that the country needs to be headed, is with running a billionaire who inherited their money. But he has done some things in Illinois and has also been very outspoken and aggressive with his rhetoric against letting Donald Trump do things within his state borders, which is fascinating. And I would say there's three other main candidates that have been floated as possibilities. One of them would be Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, mainly because he's a governor in a very red state, and he almost comes across as more centrist. He has put together some liberal policies, but he almost just the way he speaks with his southern accent and the fact that he's from Kentucky almost brands him naturally as a very moderate guy. Which how that would fare in a general election could be something that would be a plus for him. Whether or not he would be able to get through the primary, or whether or not he would even want to run, is another question for another day. But if he did, that would be kind of where his advantage would come in a general election. As a Southern Democrat from Kentucky who won a red state, could he brand himself as moderate and pull together enough voters? That would be an interesting question. So the other two that we need to address would be Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan. She has done some good things. She's put together a list of some decent progressive policies. I actually think that she, of these people, may be one of the most progressive people on the list. She's done some very good things, including free breakfast and free lunch for school children. She's done a lot for education in her state. So obviously I supported that with Tim Walz. She's done a ton for infrastructure. One of her big things was allowing people to be able to get to work and be able to work safely. She's done huge infrastructure spending within the state of Michigan and has won Michigan as governor, which is obviously a very crucial blue wall swing state as well. She also has done a lot for local parks and environmentalism within her state, which is a direction that we need to be headed in as well whenever we're coming out of the Trump presidency, getting right back into trying to get as much climate legislation through as possible. So I think she's rather progressive compared to some of these other people. The only question again with her would be, number one, can she win the primary against a very loaded group of people here with talented governors and secretaries, as well as would we be able to nominate a woman for president again? And if we did, would she just lose on the fact that she's a woman, or would she be able to gather the country together and get enough votes? Because after a Clinton loss and a Kamala loss 2 out of 3 elections in a row, the question of whether or not our country is ready to elect a woman is a legitimate question. The last person that I'm going to talk about as a serious potential 2028 candidate is Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland. I'm a fan of this guy as well. He is former military, which brands him as slightly more conservative off the bat, which will be good for a general election. He did a lot in the military, being in Afghanistan, etc. And he's a very good speaker, communicator of ideas, very well-spoken, intelligent guy. Did some good things in his state. His slogan was, I believe, in his state, "Leave no man behind," or "Leave no one behind." They've done a good job with environmental protections. He's very pro-union. He has been very democratic in trying to allow his constituents to make decisions. I believe in their state they put the marijuana legalization on a direct ballot initiative. So he has worked well with his constituents. He's done a lot in charity organizations as well and served in the military. He is a law and order Democrat as well. He's promoted more police officers and better law enforcement within his state, while also talking out against police brutality and speaking up for gun rights. And also for gun laws and protections, I should say, and regulations. So he's an interesting guy who's a former military guy, but very pro-union, and has worked with a lot of different charities, like I said, and organizations. And he's a bit he balances progressivism with a moderate vibe, and he is an African American gentleman, very well spoken and intelligent. So the question would be again, after the last election, are we just heading right back to generic white, slimy, greasy Gavin Newsom, or are we going to go in more of a direction of a possible former military African American tough on crime type Democrat? It's different types of Democrats here all fighting for one spot, and it will be interesting to see how they all match up against each other, if any of these people actually end up going out for the election, because a lot of things can change over the next few years. And so those are the main candidates. A few other names that have been floated in the social media realm have been Stephen A. Smith. He said he would run, if he were to run, he would run as an independent. He probably won't run. He just pretty much said that if someone told him that he could be the president of the United States, that's something he would probably take. He did endorse Kamala Harris in the last election. So he would be an interesting, obviously an amazing debater. He's very centrist. He doesn't promote very much progressive policies, so not exactly a candidate I would promote. Also, Jon Stewart has been floated as a progressive with big personality, celebrity, controversial, kind of as a counter to Trumpism in a way. That would be interesting. That's been floated a lot by Kyle Kalinske, who's been promoting that on his show. David Pakman has mentioned him as well. That would be a very interesting type of transition into celebrity progressivism. And the last candidate who's been floated in this kind of celebrity sphere has been Mark Cuban, who obviously floated an endorsement, I should say, for Kamala Harris in this last election, has sold a lot of his shares of the Mavericks. He's no longer the owner, so he's getting more involved into these political affairs, and he's a billionaire, but he has talked out against people that don't pay their taxes. He's an interesting one. It would be interesting to see how he would match up if in a general election, as he's a pretty likable character coming from poor beginnings and making it big in the United States. So he would be an interesting one as well. So those are your three kind of celebrity names that have been floated. Not as serious, at least yet, but those are the names that I'm floating here in 2024. We'll see how that turns out in about 2.5, 3, 4 years, and who's running and who wins the nomination. So those are the names that you should keep on your radar for the future. Get out and register to vote. There's going to be a lot of important elections coming up over the next few years with regards to midterms and trying to gain some more representatives back in the Senate and the House. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that you take something out of this video and that maybe you'll do some research yourself and see which of these candidates you most align with. I will probably wait, and I will eventually make an endorsement maybe a lot down the road after we know a lot more about who's running and what their exact agendas will be. But thank you for watching. I hope that you have an amazing day and an enjoyable rest of your Sunday. God bless, and I'll see you next time on the Roman Polcha Show.